welcome to episode 3, Dr. Loomis, and today I'm reviewing Ghostbusters, which I've just seen. And speaking as someone who has a lot of love for the original 2 Ghostbusters movie and the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, I was really looking forward to seeing this movie and praising what was going on. The only way to really review this is to compare it to the original 2 movies, or at least the first movie, because it's the only other frame of reference. The film ultimately, I will say it outright, does not work anywhere near as well as the original Ghostbusters. And there are reasons for that, and I'm going to look at some of those reasons why this film was not as successful as it could have been, and certainly wasn't as great as the film that it emulated, which is the original Ghostbusters movie. First thing off, comparing this movie to its original is very much like when The Phantom Menace came out. And The Phantom Menace came out, and the first thing that people noticed was that the palette of colours were just too strong compared to the films that The Phantom Menace were emulating, which were the original Star Wars trilogy. So the feel of the film was all wrong. The look of the film was wrong. The characters were not right. They were not of the same Star Wars universe that we'd grown to know and love all that time. And the Ghostbusters movie is exactly that. This is what's happened. It's what happened to us when The Phantom Menace came out. This is, if you like, the Ghostbusters equivalent of The Phantom Menace, because they've gone for a film that is very similar, and instead what they've done is they've got the palette wrong. Visually, to the film, one of the great things about the original Ghostbusters was the palette, the colours that were used, muted colours, dark colours. It gave it the feel of a horror movie, as did a lot of the music, the soundtrack and the incidental music created a feel to it. Something I always remember from the original Ghostbusters as a kid, for some reason, always stuck in my mind, that it seemed a cold place, New York. There were lots of shots with guys with hats, gloves, coats. I seem to remember people breathing and smoke coming out. It didn't look like like a glamorous place to be. It looked like a cold, hard city, and that, if anything, made you respect the Ghostbusters more, because they needed to be grounded to exist in the real world that encased them. So, for example, the Ghostbusters in the original had money worries, and they're worried about what they're going to do after they've spent their budget. When they get the first job, when they capture Slimer in the original, you feel like they've turned a corner. They're financially viable. They lived in a real world. The thing with these Ghostbusters is the New York is completely different, and that is because the palette is different. A lot of the outdoor scenes are filmed with brilliant sunshine, blue skies. The palette is wrong visually in terms of the special effects. So too much has been said already about how dissimilar the effects are in this Ghostbusters as opposed to the original. Like everybody said, I agree with everything I've read online about the cartoony nature, of the effects that are on display. The original Ghostbusters lent itself to horror, and to look at certain scenes of the original Ghostbusters film, you would think that you were looking at a horror movie. The scene where Dana Barrett's chair, the hands come out of the chair and grab her, and she gets thrown into the refrigerator dimension. I remember that being really scary. I remember a lot of people, when I was a kid, they would say that they were really scared by the librarian ghost in New York Library. People would always say that's something that scares them. I really don't see anything that will scare a new generation. I don't see people talking about the spectres that are on display in Ghostbusters 2016. Nobody will be talking about those being something that's sticking their psyche. And that's the power of Ghostbusters, because, like I said before, the palette is correct. Visually, the palette's wrong here, but tonally as well, to further add insult to injury, the tone of the Ghostbusters as characters and the way they interact with the situation is again really really off the mark and really not what you want from a Ghostbusters movie. First off, the chemistry between the four main actresses seemed forced. Whereas, again, it's been said before, but the magic of the original film really comes down to the chemistry between the three main protagonists: Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray. Of course, more about Bill Murray and seeing him, what it was like to see him in this film, because that depressed me. That is possibly one of the saddest things I've ever seen in movie history, is Bill Murray on screen. He must have been forced to participate. He looks visibly sad and uncomfortable. And I don't know how they got Bill Murray to agree to participate in this. He really didn't look happy to be there. And I was sad to see him. Anyway, I digress. The fact of the matter is that the Ghostbusters do not react to the ghosts as you would want them to. In the original, the Ghostbusters were fearful and they were scared of the ghosts that they came across. Even Slimer, when they showed up stalking the corridors looking for Slimer, who you think of Slimer as being a comedy ghost, but there was that initial build-up of tension. Venkman seems terrified when he sees Slimer. In terms of getting the palette wrong for this movie, what they did was the Ghostbusters were never fearful. Never, not even in the most extreme circumstances, did they come across as being afraid of what they were happening. In fact, I remember the scene where they come across a ghost for the first time, and it's this in this universe there have been no Ghostbusters before. There's been no substantiated evidence of ghosts or the paranormal. So when they come across a ghost, it's actually the first time in human history that someone's come across and documented a real life ghost. So, you know, incredible. That would be incredible stuff. But as they experience it, they I remember they quip. They don't seem afraid. They seem completely full of confidence and completely full of enthusiasm. At one point, when they first see the ghost, I remember one of the characters, Holtzman, is just eating Pringles as she stares, amazedly at something off camera. It was played for laughs. It definitely wasn't played for scares, and that's something that was great and made Ghostbusters a really unusual beast. It was that mix of horror and comedy. And how many horror comedies can you think of that work? It's difficult to think of one that works well. I'm thinking the Evil Dead movies, especially the third one, which was so much more geared towards comedy. But beyond that, it's difficult to think. So, you know, if you can think of any more good horror comedies, certainly get back to me on that one. But yeah, the Ghostbusters, they don't appear to be afraid of what they come across during the movie in the 2016 version. The original Ghostbusters, you like them because of their schlubby nature and their fallibility. They're not chiseled, they're not pretty, they're four schlubby guys. I think they were, some of them, certainly I think Harold Ramis was in his 40s in the original Ghostbusters. Now, when they come across any physical exertion in the original Ghostbusters, they're panting, they constantly seem worn down, a little tired. They've got hangdog expressions. In one scene in this, the main Ghostbusters almost die, and they save themselves. And afterwards, they're clapping and laughing and high-fiving and whooping and hollering. And it goes back to what I said initially, was that New York used to feel cold, like the Ghostbusters lived in a real universe where they had to pay the bills and there were taxes. The palette of this movie, the Ghostbusters 2016, it's sunny skies, and it's people laughing, and clapping, and whooping and hollering and high-fiving and quipping. It takes place in a figurative and literal different universe to the original Ghostbusters. And what I'm surprised at the studio really is, you get a franchise picture like this, what you want to do is you want to emulate the original insofar as you want to replicate its success. So they look at this situation and they say, well, how can we do it? Well, we need to put into Ghostbusters the bare minimum of what we need to do to make sure that people come to see the movie. And they've got everything upside down, because what's most important for me for the original Ghostbusters was the feel of the film, the cinematography, but also the chemistry between the main characters. And this movie, this one, the reboot, does not have that. Okay guys, my Ghostbusters dissection will continue in part 2.